Hello guys and girls, and welcome to today's lesson. As you can see here on the screen, our topic today is theme, and this is something that we have actually spent some time already this year talking about and going over, but as we've discussed in class, since our testing window is very quickly approaching, we're going to be doing a little bit of review today, and again, as you already know, our topic is theme. Some of you all might be really comfortable with identifying the theme of a passage, and some of you might still be struggling a little bit, but either way, this is going to be a great review for you as we prepare for our end of year testing. At your desk right now, you should have a piece of paper, and up at the top of the paper, there are some blanks to fill in as you go over these notes today, so please make sure that you are paying close attention. And I'll also just give you guys a heads up that at the end of the video today, there are going to be some questions, and you are going to be getting a grade, so make sure you are staying engaged and following along with me. If you've got your paper, you've got your pencil, and you have your listening ears on, we are ready to get started. So let's jump into this super quick review. First thing I want to talk about is what is the goal, right? Like anytime that we're learning about anything, we have to understand what we are trying to learn. All year long, whether you've noticed it or not, over on the sideboard, you could actually look right now, there's going to be one up there. We have these things that we call I can statements. I can statements let us know what are we shooting for, what is the target, what is the goal that we are trying to achieve. So by the time you get done with this lesson today, hopefully you can do the following. I can determine the theme of a text. That's pretty obvious. You should be able to read a passage and tell me what is a possible theme for that passage. I would say most of us actually probably already have that figured out, and we're pretty good on that. But there's this tricky word right here. It says and, so it means that doing this first part is only half your job. You also have to be able to explain how it, meaning the theme, is developed throughout the text. In other words, you have to be able to tell me, how did you know that the theme you identified is the theme of the story? What happened in the text? What did the main character do? What did the character say? How did other people react to that main character? That let you know and understand what the theme is. And so as we're moving through this today, let's make sure we keep that in our brain. All right, well, first, before we can determine the theme of a text, we have to know what theme is. We have seen this definition previously this year. Theme is the life lesson, meaning, moral, or message about life or human nature that is communicated by a literary work. That is a very pretty definition. That is a very nice definition. But to put it simply, and what you need to be paying attention to as you are filling in your notes today is theme is the life lesson that the story teaches the reader. It's really that simple, guys and girls. What is the story teaching you? What kind of lesson can you take away from the story? One thing that we need to understand about themes is that a theme is not a word, it is a sentence. So if you are ever asked to identify the theme of a passage, if you're ever asked to tell what that life lesson is that the story is teaching you, you should not have a one-word answer. It should be a complete sentence. Another thing that's important to point out here is that you don't have to agree with the theme to identify it. So if you're reading a story and a theme is presented that maybe is a life lesson that you yourself do not agree with, that doesn't mean that it's not the theme of the story. Just because you don't agree with it does not mean that it's not the theme. Some examples of some popular themes that you've probably seen in different movies that you've watched or books that you've read are money can't buy happiness, don't judge a book by its cover, and hard work pays off. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of other possible themes out there. These are just a few examples to kind of get your brain going in the right direction. I'm sure when you heard one of these, certain stories may come to your mind because these are very common in a lot of different stories. We're going to take a look at a silly little passage here, and then we're going to talk about what is the theme of this passage. So I'm going to read this, and I would like you to follow along with me. Jenny was so excited. She had a pack of Starburst in her lunch, and she had been looking forward to eating them all morning. Lunch finally came, and Jenny sat down to eat her Starburst when her friend, Yuddy, sat next to her. "Let me get the pink ones," asked Yuddy. Jenny liked the pink ones best, but she thought Yeti was funny and Jenny wanted Yeti to like her. So Jenny gave Yeti all of her pink starbursts. Before Jenny was done giving Yeti the pink ones, Carrie sat on the other side of Jenny. "Let me get the red and the orange ones, Jenny. Remember when I gave you that Snickers?" Jenny didn't remember that, though she did remember when Carrie ate a whole Snickers in front of her. But Jenny thought Carrie was cool, so she gave her the red and the orange starburst. Now that she only had the yellow ones, Jenny wasn't so excited about eating starburst anymore. Couple of things that we need to know about themes, and we're going to refer back to that story here in just a second, is that themes are not explicit. So what that means is usually a story is not going to come out and tell you word for word what the theme is. Instead, themes are an inference. So what that means is you have to look at the events in the story. You have to think about the characters and the traits that they have and the way that they speak to other characters and the actions that they take in the story. And you have to combine all of those clues to make an inference, which means an educated guess about what the theme is. Themes are also bigger than the story. So here's what that looks like. We have the small world of the story. So in the instance of that story we just read, it was about a group of friends fighting over some starburst. That is the small world of the story. And you have to figure out how can that small world of the story fit into the big world of the theme. So when I say big world, what I mean is the real world, the world that you and I are a part of. With those things in mind, we know that the theme of this story about the starburst is not that yellow starburst tastes bad. If you were to think that that is the theme of the story, you are thinking too small. You're thinking about the characters in the story and not the real world. The theme of the story is not that Yeti and Carrie are bad friends. You have to think about the real world. I personally don't know anyone named Yeti. I do know someone named Carrie. But that is about the specific characters in the story. And if you identify a theme and you have specific details from the text as part of your theme, you are not thinking about the real world. You have to find the real world advice inside the small world of the story. So that might look something like this. You can't buy your friends. In that story that we just read, it seemed like the girl who had the starburst was really just trying to appease or impress the other girls by giving them the starburst that they wanted. And in the end, she was really the one that got hurt by that because she was left with starburst that she didn't actually like. So even though she thought those girls maybe were her friends, they weren't actually her friends. You can't buy friends is a lesson that is good for me in the real world. You have to take care of yourself. Again, she gave away the starburst that she wanted. In the end, she was disappointed. So that's another great theme for this story. Or not everybody is your friend. The two girls in the story who wanted the starburst acted like they were her friend, but at the end we realized they weren't really her friend after all. Another thing I want to point out before we get into a couple of practice questions is that these are 3 different answers that are all correct answers. A story can have more than one theme. If you can justify it by explaining your answer, then it's probably an appropriate theme for the story. So I know we went through that really quickly, but just to recap, theme is the life lesson that we learn from a story. We have to make an inference. Remember, we have to look at what the characters say. We have to look at how they interact with other characters in the story. We have to take all of that information and apply it to the real world because themes are about the big world, not the small world of the story. We're going to read, I believe we've got 2 passages here, and I'm going to have you tell me what you think the theme of each passage might be. Once there was a mean little boy who lived in a small village. This mean little boy loved to mess with people, so one day he ran up to a sheep herder and shouted, "Wolf, wolf, a wolf is attacking the town." The sheep herder grabbed his staff and ran to defend the town, but realized he had been fooled when the boy started pointing and laughing at him. "Ha ha, I made you jump," said the boy. Then the boy ran up to a farmer and shouted, "Wolf, wolf, a wolf is attacking the town." The farmer grabbed his pitchfork and ran to defend the town, but when the boy started pointing and laughing at him, he realized he had been tricked. As the boy went back to his family's farm laughing about the funny trick he played, He saw a real wolf in his father's chicken coop. As the wolf ate all of his father's chickens, the boy screamed over and over again, "Wolf, wolf, please help us." But nobody came to help him. What do you think the theme of this story might be? I have a couple of correct answers. Hopefully you did get that correct when you were selecting your own answer. Don't ask for help unless you really need it. If you think back to the story, the little boy said there was a wolf twice before there was the actual wolf, and both of those times people came to help him. But that third time when he actually was in trouble, no one came to help. So that would be an appropriate theme. Or don't play tricks on people around you would be another great theme for this story. Let's look at one more example. Angie loved to draw. She made colorful designs of people's names with bright hearts and flowers, but she lost her own markers, so she borrowed her teacher's. The school day was ending, but Angie wanted to keep coloring, so she took the teacher's markers home and lost them in her messy room. She came back to school the next day and wanted to color again, so she asked the teacher for more markers. The teacher replied, "Sure, Angie, but this is my last pack." Angie said she would be careful, but by the end of the day, the markers were scattered all over the floor, and the custodian swept them up and threw them away. When Angie came in the next day, she asked the teacher for more markers, but she was disappointed to find that there weren't any more. "I don't know where all of my markers went," said the teacher, "but I don't have them." Angie was sad because she couldn't draw any more pictures. What do you think the theme of this story might be? The answer I was looking for there was treat others' items with respect. We know that because in the story we had Angie who kept borrowing the markers from her teacher, but she didn't treat them well, and eventually the markers ran out. She didn't have any more. Another possible answer here could be that you can't always get what you want. Remember, stories can have more than one correct theme, so even though these are different answers, they are both correct. All right, we are going to continue reviewing in class in just a few moments. You should see up on the board that we have a timer going, so if you are finished and there is still time left on the clock, I would ask that you please sit quietly and do not disturb people around you until we are ready to move on.